Sarah Champion is the Labour MP for Rotherham. She's been campaigning for an inquiry for years. Joins us now. Morning, Sarah.
Good morning.
You must have been pretty delighted when you heard that an inquiry was going to happen.
Kind of yes and no. I mean, I would love it to have happened 60 years ago, because when I first started working on this, I was getting cases from the 1960s, and then quite a lot from the 1970s forwards. And you just think, had we dealt with it as a crime then, how much suffering would have been averted? But yes, it better late than never. And we really, really need to get to the truth of how these groups are operating and how they've gone largely ignored for just so long, because the victims and the survivors, they need justice and they need to be told that, yes, they were right. This was happening. It was a crime, so that they can draw a line under it.
You've spoken to many victims over the years, as you mentioned. Have you got a sense of their reaction to this announcement?
A bit jaded, I have to say. I mean, as Chantel was saying, they actually just want justice. They don't want another inquiry that limps along for years and years. So the best news I heard this morning was that the National Crime Agency is going to be involved. Now, I love them. They've been working in Rotherham to get us convictions for the last 7 years, and they come in a completely different way. I mean, first of all, it's national. And I think one of the things that needs looking into is, rather than dealing with these cases as individual isolated gangs, my gut feeling is there's going to be a connection between them, and the National Crime Agency can explore and expose that. But also they come with a completely different way of doing business to local police forces, because they're 100% focused on the victim and survivor and making sure that they feel comfortable through the process and get the justice that they feel they need. Because, of course, it's the victims and survivors that end up being the witnesses, that end up getting the prosecutions. So if you support them as best as you can, that's the best way to get the perpetrators in jail.
And do you feel that a national inquiry is best if it is kind of led nationally, but then the local inquiries are also sort of, it kind of has to work together? Like, you need the local insight, don't you, alongside the national lead?
So when the sort of the call for a national inquiry came up again in January, I was a little reluctant, because 10 years ago, I, along with Tom Watson and Zach Goldsmith, got the big inquiry, the independent inquiry into child abuse. And it went on for 7 years and it cost nearly £200 million. And I thought, oh, my goodness, we don't want that again. But then listening to people, I think a hub and spoke model. So it needs to be coming from national, so that it's got statutory powers to compel people to come. But yes, you're absolutely right. I think unless they're handled locally by someone independent, you're not going to get the impact that you need.
Do you feel that the law is currently fit for purpose in terms of protecting children and actually on top of that, prosecuting abusers, or do we need to have a look at the legal framework?
I think that there are some tweaks, but with Bernardo's 11 years ago, we did an inquiry into this, and we found that the law pretty much was fit for purpose, but how it's applied is where the problems are. And one of the things that I hope we'll get out of this inquiry is a deep search into all police forces and all social services to make sure they understand the early signs of child protection and child exploitation, and do something to make sure that all children are safe. When that has failed, they need to understand how the law works and how to apply it swiftly, because I'm not seeing an even-handed application of that. I mean, yes, there are tweaks that need to happen, and I will be campaigning on that this week, in fact, because we've got the crime and policing bill coming forwards. But as a whole, I think where the problem is that some people have seemed to be above the law, that the law isn't applied in an even-handed way. And that was really what brought me to say, yes, we need a national inquiry, because the law is black and white and it needs to operate without fear and favour. And there's a big assumption that hasn't been happening. So let's get to the bottom of that. And I'm particularly concerned if there were people in authority who didn't do their duty. They need to be held to account in one way or another.
It's a very politically charged and sensitive issue. And I wonder how many occasions you think there have been where stuff hasn't proceeded, cases haven't been pursued because people have been worried about the sort of racist implications that the fear that they have that they may be branded racist.
Sadly, I think that that is going to be the case. And I don't say that from my experience locally. I say that from each of the reports that have been done into grooming gangs. I mean, that very clearly is a motivator for people not to do the right thing. And that's the frustration, that there shouldn't be any sort of racial tension around saying that someone is a perpetrator of child abuse. It's the crime that we need to be looking at. And had the law been applied correctly right at the very beginning, this wouldn't be one of those areas that people are anxious about for being called a racist, because the law is colourblind and it should be applied in that way. And it's a deep frustration to everybody that that didn't happen from the very beginning, because you let everybody down, not least the Pakistani community, who have faced a lot of criticism and attacks because of this. It's not them, it's the criminals that are the ones that we should be directing our frustration on.
Do we know enough about the motivations of these grooming gangs? I'm like, is it just, I don't know, power, opportunity? I don't really like. I don't know if you feel that we understand, because if you want to try and tackle a problem that is seemingly endemic, you kind of need to get. I can't really get into that headspace. I don't understand it.
Yeah, I mean, I've been trying to get into that headspace as well. And I think that that is the one big reason why I'm relieved the National Crime Agency is there. Because from looking at all the cases around me, and I'm talking about the north of England, there seems to be, well, it's just too much of a coincidence that all of these different gangs in different areas are using the same model of recruitment of children, of exploitation, of abuse, and then of trafficking. For me, that feels organised. And the other thing which I'd be really interested to find out is a lot of the victims and survivors that I know have been trafficked through or to Bradford. And I know that the local MPs there have expressed deep concern for a very, very long time. So having the National Crime Agency there means that we can actually investigate that and see what's going on. Because you're absolutely right. I mean, abuse is always about power, not just about sex. But I'm wondering if it's also to do with drugs, organised crime, the repercussions of that. And that will be something which will be absolutely fascinating, because that's how we stop it. We get to the actual root of what's going on and why.
Just listening to what Sir Keir Starmer has said about this previously, I get the feeling that he was not expecting Baroness Casey to come back with a recommendation to have a national inquiry. Do you know why he wasn't expecting that, and what might have kind of tipped the balance for Baroness Casey? We're just going to have to wait and read the review.
Well, all I can say is he doesn't know Louise Casey that well, if that was his thought. Louise came and worked in Rotherham. She did an inquiry for the government in 2015. I haven't seen the report. I'm desperate to see the report, but I can almost tell you what's going to be in there, which is that this isn't isolated cases. This is something that we need to be concerned about at a national level. And what I need to say to people is this is just one, the Pakistani gangs are just one model. There are many, many other examples of different types of grooming gangs. And of course, there are many, many examples of different forms of child abuse. But this one, I don't think has been dealt with correctly. I mean, as I said, I've got cases going back to the 60s. This particular specific model of abuse is going on and needs to be addressed and prevented once and for all. So I think it's absolutely right that we're now going to have the inquiry to bottom this out.
Good to speak to you. Thanks very much, Sarah.
Thank you.
Sarah Champion, Labour MP for Rotherham.